Education 633 theory video blog on this is on distant education. Distant education has been revolutionized by the rapid evolution of computers, telecommunication, and electronic learning technology. Inter- Internet-based learning has become a popular and well-accepted methodology for delivering distant education. Faster and more powerful computers, increased internet bandwidths, and easy-to-learn training software, along with tightened corporate training budget, mean web-based training and distant education are here to stay. Students revealed that most distant education students are adults between the ages of 25 to 50. A, a distant learners are more likely than conventional students to be employed full time. B statistics means that sound instruction designs and distant education depends on a clear understanding of what factors affect adult learning. Adults tend to think of themselves as mature, responsible, and independent. Yet they may feel anxious, even threatened about a return to the classroom, or even if the classroom is online. A number of things can be designed into a course curriculum to reduce um, adults' anxiety. One would be to gain student attention early. Two would be to focus attention on the desired outcome. Three would clearly state instructional objectives for each section or lesson. Assess learning by organizing material into chunks or information. Provide learning experience that promote moving information for short-term to long-term memory. Other frequent feedback and opportunities for learning reinforcements, and incorporate numerous guide practice in the course. When we think about adult learning theories, in order to effectively design courses geared for adult students, it is important to understand how adults learn and how their needs are different from those of K through 12 or typically undergraduate students. Adult education literature supports the idea that adults are mutual partners in the learning endeavor. Some of the adult learning theory is geared more towards face-to-face instructions, but many principles can be applied to e-learning efforts. Adults tend to prefer single concept, single therapy courses that focus heavily on the application concept to relevant problems. These tendencies increase with age. Regardless of the media, straightforward how to is the preferred content of orientation. The importance of learning theories. A theory provides people with an explanation to make sense of complex practice and phenomenon and can be provide a perspective that reduces complexity while suggesting generalization ability. Learning at a distance is complex practice. And examination of a theory will provide us with the understanding necessary to take effective action and can also help to predict what will and what could be. The process is a highly complex system. It is not linear process, but rather cycle. As this process continually changes depending on the person's experience and surrounding, instructional design and educator face a demanding task when producing a meaningful and challenging learning experience for all learners. Moore's theory of interaction indicate there is a need to describe and define the field of distant education, to discriminate between its various components, and to identify the critical elements of various forms of learning and teaching. The dominant learning theories of the past century was behaviorism, Kantianism, and constructionism. The three theories have been influenced education and guiding instructional practice since the 1800s. Learning theories provide a solid foundation for multitudes of strategies and reasoning techniques needed for instructional design to create a meaningful learning system. There are two main questions that sometimes theorists And researchers ask, where does knowledge come from? And how do people come to know? These questions provide insight into the difference between learning theories, but also demonstrate how theory plays an important role in distant education. Theory is based on a strong research, which is reliability for based on instructional phenomena. So now we're going to talk a little bit about behaviorism. Behaviorism believes that it is an internal factor that shapes learning rather than characteristic of the individual learning. Learning is subsequential. It occurs by accumulating its element building blocks. Behaviorism was dominated around the 1950s and was an instructional design. First arose and was used on a base for creating many audio-video material as well as Skinner teaching machine. Some recent examples used in distant learning education are computer assistant instructions and machinery learning. Some of the key principles using when design instruction material includes the production of observable and measurable outcomes in students to be used for assessing the students. This consider an assessment of students to determine where instruction should begin, the machinery of early steps before processing to a more complex level, reinforcing improved performance, and using cues to ensure strong stimulus response association. Now, when we talk a little bit about connectionism, a shift occurred in the late 1950s towards learning theories from the cognitive science. Educators placed emphasis on observable behavior. They focus on complex cognitive process and internal mental process such as information acquisition, processing, storage, and memory, which are vital to learning. Cognitionists focus on how information is received, organized, and stored, and retrieved by the mind. The main focus of cognitive approach is on changing the learner by encouraging him or her to use an approach of learning strategy. This may include the learners and the learning process organize and synchronize information to facilitate optional process in creating a learning environment that allows and encourages students to make connections with previous learning material. When we think about constructionists believe that the knowledge is a function of how the individual creates meaning from his or her experience. It's not a function of what else says is true. They do not share the belief, the analogous to behaviorism and cognitivists, that knowledge is a mind independent and can be mapped onto learning, rather than they believe that humans create meanings as opposed to acquire it. Both the learner and the environment factor are critical in interaction between two issues is what create knowledge. When developing a distant education program, I would use constructionism theory because it designs most create stimulating environment that captures the learners, enable them to formulate knowledge, derive meaning for themselves. These environments allow for collaboration between the learner and instructor and encourage a meaningful dialogue so that the understanding can be individualized, constructive. So with all three of these, each of these three long-standing learning theory plays a role in distant education. A good designer does not strictly apply only one of these theories when designing. Rather, it's important to consider the specific learning task. On the other hand, a transition to a constructive approach needs to occur as learners master more complex problems, and acquire a high level of thinking skills. Distant education does not appear to be a fade. It is here to stay. The ever-increasing number of universities and institutions offer online classes can be overwhelming, but the challenge is to find a quality program that provides learning with a wealth of meaningful experience and that does not center solely on making a profit. As we have seen, distant education still struggles to agree upon the theories it would use to build framework. However, developers must not lose sight of the execution phase of their programs as they involve collaboration between the teacher, the learner, and technology and generation of knowledge. When I think about my strength and weakness concerning distant education, I'm going to start with the strength. Is distant education an educational activity? I say here for the strength that distant education is more industrialized form of education. Theological base for distant education within the general education theory. When I think about my weakness here, is distant education a form of conventional education? Because distant education is not based on interpersonal communication, it is characterized by a privatization of institutionalized learning. It is a distinct form of education. Therefore, while the theological base for distant education can be found within general education theory, it cannot be found within the theological study of all group-based education. In summary, the changing and diverse environment in which distant education is practiced has inhibited the development of single theory upon which to base practice and research. A variety of theories have been proposed to describe the transitional distant education. They include theories that emphasize independence of the learners, industrialization of teaching, interaction, and communication. These classic theories emphasize the notion of distant education as a fundamental, different form of education. Recent emerged theory based on the capability of new interaction telecommunication based audio and video systems suggests that distant education may not be a distinctive field of education, but the utilization of existing educational theory and creation of equivalent experience for the distant and local learners are emphasized. Classical distant education theory needs to address the change to education facilitated by new technology. Advocates of the new theory must consider their relationships of the traditional strength of distant education. For an example, the new theory focused on face-to-face instruction eliminates the advantage of time-independent learning that traditional theories of distant education value. The debate of these theological issues will only increase in the face of a continual technology challenge. An environment in which technology, society, economics, politics, and approach to learning are all in transition, that theory, definition, and practice of distant education will continue to be contested. The theme of change will both be challenging and motivated at a distance. Thank you.